Chapter 5: The Road to the Top. Every artist had a different relationship with Berry Gordy. Some people were mad at him about early royalties, but my relationship with him was always positive, and over the years I learned he would match what you put into the relationship. The Tops were already established before he signed us. He didn't discover four young R&B singers, break them in and groom them like he did with so many others. He recognized that we were a popular, well-regarded group before we got there. We already had a distinct sound and musical identity. He never stated an intention to reshape us, and from the start, he said he wanted to release an album of us singing jazz standards on his label. We couldn't have been happier. Barry's vision was that Mickey Stevenson would produce our initial American Songbook LP for a new jazz label he was starting. Since the Tops had been doing their thing for so long, Barry told us to pick whoever we wanted to write our arrangements, the size of our band, how many horn players we needed, and whether we wanted a rhythm section or just a combo. He left the creative decisions up to us. We were excited to get this kind of artistic respect and freedom. We told Mickey that we wanted a live recording with big band arrangements. We picked Ernie Wilkins, who wrote for Count Basie, and Gil Askey, who had written for us in Atlantic City, to do the arrangements. They both agreed to come to Motown and work with the four of us. Once they arrived, we all sat down with Mickey and picked the songs, which we started learning right away while the arrangements were being written. The first day, we recorded a live session with everyone, musicians and artists, the horns, the rhythm section, and the vocals, all in one room. It wasn't like it is now, where if you make a mistake, you can stop, rewind, and re-record. Back in 1963, it had to be done in one take all the way through. As we recorded, we made a couple of mistakes, and the band made some too. We were only able to get through one whole song that first day, although 3 had been scheduled. Nevertheless, it was a remarkable session because it was the first time Motown had ever done anything live in their studios, all the musicians and singers all together in a room recording at the same time. It took us about 3 months to successfully record 12 songs with that big band. Then it was decided we would record 8 more with a smaller band at the Greystone Ballroom, a historic downtown landmark where greats like Ella Fitzgerald, Duke Ellington, and Glenn Miller had played. Barry had purchased it in 1963 and installed a new sound system so that Motown's acts could perform in a magnificent venue. We turned the Greystone into a recording studio for a live audience. Barry put out word that the Four Tops would be appearing at the Greystone for a one-night concert. We had a full house and played an amazing repertoire of jazz standards and even one blues tune, Every Day I Have the Blues, once recorded by Joe Williams and also Memphis Slim. Back then, it took about 5 months to mix the album and complete it with all the finishing touches. We couldn't wait to hear the finished product. We were so proud and excited that we had finally accomplished our goal. Breaking Through was the album we had dreamed of, an LP of American standards, with tunes like I Left My Heart in San Francisco, fascinating rhythm, and I Could Have Danced All Night, from the Broadway musical My Fair Lady. Little did we know as we walked into Barry's office to hear it for the first time, it wouldn't be released for over 35 years. Barry ushered us into the office with Mickey Stevenson, and after we listened to a few cuts, he broke the news that he didn't think it was the right direction for us to go in. Good sound, great sound, man, he said, as he stopped the recording. This is all good stuff, but I want you to hear what these 3 young writers are doing in this office over here. He motioned to one of his adjoining buildings. He kept talking, putting our dreams for Breaking Through on hold and shifting gears. I'm going to put this out eventually, but to be honest, it's just not commercial enough. We didn't say anything. We didn't know what to think, given how much he and everyone else involved had invested in it emotionally and creatively. I want y'all to go over there and meet them. Eddie Holland, Brian Holland, and Lamont Dozier. They call themselves Holland Dozier Holland. We know them, just not that well, I said. Eddie Holland's a great singer. He sounds just like Jackie Wilson. Barry laughed. That's the thing, he thinks he's a better writer than singer. Go over with Mickey and he'll introduce you. I'll call over there and tell them we need them to write you some hits. That's how it started with HDH. Mickey made the official introductions, but we recognized each other from years of running into each other around town. They complimented our singing, then relayed Barry's message to them. He wanted hit songs. Well, y'all got a little hit out with Martha. Come and get these memories, I said. And it looks like you're going to have a hit with the Supremes. We'd heard a few of their cuts in the making. Lamont nodded, smiling graciously. Yeah, we got a little thing going, but we'd love to work with y'all. More than a musical collaboration began that day. It was a friendship. The Four Tops' new musical direction couldn't have been in better hands. We were somewhat disappointed when Barry revealed that he had another vision for us, beyond jazz standards. Even though we were doubtful, we trusted him. It paid off, big time. While HDH were busy working on material, we kept busy singing background vocals for other Motown artists. We were booked almost every night with either Martha and the Vandellas, Marvin Gaye, the Marvelettes, or Kim Weston. Many of our backup vocals didn't make the records, but we were averaging 2 sessions a night. It all added up to Thursday night paychecks of about $37.50, sometimes as little as $20.50. We were no longer touring and traveling on the road, so that amounted to little more than pocket money. Nothing to get excited about. But what did excite us while singing backup was learning how to record in the studio, how to put feeling into our singing with no audience to feed off, and how to get the nuances of our sound right. We impressed everyone by how quickly we could knock out background vocals. Motown had a female session group, the Andantes, three fabulous singers who did backup for Martha and the Vandellas, the Temptations, the Supremes, the Marvelettes, and others. Folks started calling us the male Andantes. Word soon spread, and everyone wanted us to sing background for them, which we did for a couple of months until things started clicking. As the new additions to Motown's family, we started hanging around Hitsville even when we weren't working. We were having the time of our life because we were making great friends with everybody. The Temptations, the Miracles, the Supremes. Little Stevie Wonder was this cute young man, like a kid in a toy shop. He played all kinds of instruments. If a studio was empty, he would go in and beat on the drums, then play the piano, making music with whatever he could find. If we were sitting in the reception area, we'd see people coming and going, and we could hear music coming from all the studios. It was like our own little campus students' union. That's how close we were getting. Most of the artists were young, 17 or 18, and we were just a little older. Motown was like a college of music. It was an exciting time. While we were waiting for HDH to write us one of their masterpieces, we landed a gig at the 20 Grand, one of Detroit's most prestigious nightclubs, a very classy place where all the top acts performed. We were good friends with the owner, Bill Cabas, who learned we were back in town. He told us we could work there whenever we wanted. We had just wrapped a show at his club one night when Brian Holland showed up in our dressing room. "Fellas, I got the song," he announced. "I got y'all a hit." "Yeah?" We got all excited. "What's the song?" "I got it on tape," he said, playing it on his cassette. He sang along with just a piano accompanying. "It's called Baby, I Need Your Loving," he said, apparently hearing it in his head in all its glory. All we could hear were the bare bones. "Well, it sounds okay. What are you going to put with it?" I asked. "We got a little rhythm track cut in the studio already. I just wanted to bring you the song to see if you like it." "Yeah, we like it," we said, feeding more off his excitement than what we could hear on tape. "Will you come to the studio and record it?" he asked, really stoked about his new song. We looked at each other, silently communicating. "Now? Well, why not? Let's go with it." "Yeah, are you kidding?" "Yeah," one of us answered. We were still pumped from our 20 Grand performance. We're in good voice and shit, we're ready. So off we went to the studio at 2:30 in the morning to record our first HDH tune for Motown. Hitsville in the middle of the night was humming with other artists doing their own thing and checking out what else was going on. Brian wanted us to work on backgrounds first with Eddie Kendricks singing the melody so we could hear it, while he talked us through how the background vocals should go. Lamont joined in, helping explain the background and the kind of vocal arrangement they wanted, which Lawrence quickly picked up on. HDH broke down the harmonies they heard each of us singing. Then we jumped right in, and after a few tries, Lamont said, "Oh man, that's great. Let's go on ahead and record it. Y'all ready?" Things were moving pretty fast. I nodded, saying, "Well, we need to iron out a few wrinkles, but we're about ready." In the studio, we sang the backgrounds for about 10 minutes before they told Levi to go work with Eddie on the melody. While we were still recording in the booth, we watched Eddie and Levi really hitting it off, getting into the vocals, discussing things as they went along. That was a great sign. After about 20 minutes, the HDH guys were happy with the background recordings and said we were done, but we were so used to doing background for other artists, we asked if we could do one more for safety's sake. We always liked to do an extra take at the end, because once we nailed it, we learned if we did it again, the next one might be better. Either way, you can't lose, and actually, the last one turned out even stronger. Eddie, Brian, and Lamont were more than happy. "Oh man, this is fabulous. Now that you're through, want to listen to Levi and Eddie test out the lead?" "Oh yeah." We were loving every minute so far. Checking out Levi and Eddie working on the melody, we noticed that the lyrics to Baby I Need Your Loving were already printed out, but Levi had a pen and pad and was writing the words again on a separate piece of paper. "Lee, why are you doing that?" I asked him. "The words are already right there. I have to write them to feel them," he said. He did that with every song. He'd write out the lyrics even if they had been printed out for him before. After he wrote them himself, Levi sang it through with Eddie a couple of times, listening to each other, trading ideas, and collaborating to come up with the best delivery and vocalization. Levi then went into the booth and in just 3 takes he nailed it. And that was it. We had just finished our first HDH recording. We had been in the studio for a little over an hour. As we left Hitsville that night, we overheard them saying, "These motherfuckers can sang. These cats can really sing." Baby I Need Your Loving turned out to be the easiest recording we ever made, proof to us that our destiny with Motown was signed, sealed, and delivered, as Stevie Wonder put so well. The Tops had been away from Detroit for so long, I was now separated from my wife, and neither Lawrence nor I had a place to stay. The day we signed our contract, Janie Bradford, a Motown songwriter, overheard me saying I was going to get a room in a hotel. After being a married man, I didn't want to move back home with my mom. Janie offered to rent the two of us her private guest quarters. She had a big, beautiful house with private quarters in the back. It was weird staying in a hotel in my hometown, so Lawrence and I gratefully accepted. However, we spent most of our time at Motown anyway, hanging around the studio with the Supremes. By then, we were like their big brothers. They were sweet, skinny little 17-year-old girls. When we weren't at Hitsville, we would go over to Mary Wilson's house in the Brewster Projects to party. We'd drink beer and wine mixed together, which we called sluice. They didn't have a hit yet, and we didn't either, but we liked the way they sang. We loved the way they looked, and we were all working round the clock trying to get a hit. About a week after our late-night recording session with HDH, we were at Motown, sitting outside the studio in the reception area with the Supremes and the Temptations, when I thought I heard "Baby, I Need Your Loving" playing in the distance. "Hold up," I said. "Wait a minute, that's our song, you hear it?" Obie and I jumped up and ran over to the studio, listening to the tune, now with strings from the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, Funk Brothers horns, and the Andante's background vocals. It was so big and full it sounded like a whole chorus backing us up. God damn, that shit is big. It sounds beautiful, man. We were thrilled, thinking our record was about to be released, but it would take months to happen. In the meantime, the Supreme singles, Where Did Our Love Go and Baby Love, came out. They were both #1 smash hits, of course, written by HDH, who were unstoppable at this point. The Supremes followed with another HDH hit, Come See About Me, which was climbing the charts fast. It was at that point that Barry released our first Motown recording in 1964, without us even knowing it. It had taken so long, the Tops weren't together when this greatly anticipated moment happened. Obie was in Atlantic City watching his wife dance with the Larry Steele Dancers. The rest of us were in Detroit. I'd just left Hitsville and was on my way home when I heard it on the car radio. This was before FM radio, and there were no regular R&B stations. Baby, I Need Your Loving was playing on WEBK, and hearing it out of the blue blew me away. Man, that sounds like a hit, I said to my buddy, who was driving me around because I still didn't have a car. I knew my luck was changing fast. Take me back to the studio. I went straight in to speak to HDH, who said they were getting a great response already. I immediately called Levi, and he'd just heard it on the radio. We got in touch with Obie, who was excited that it had been played on a Philadelphia station too. Finally, we were able to track down Lawrence, who came to the studio, where HDH played it for him. With his musical ear, he marveled at the production, recalling how raw the song had been to start with and how beautiful it now was with the strings, background vocals, equalizing, and other technical enhancements. We were so confident that we had a hit on our hands, we knew we'd better start rehearsing a new show right away. We weren't wrong. Baby, I Need Your Loving was climbing the charts, and we immediately got a booking at the Phelps Lounge, a cool club with a sexy curved bar on Oakland Avenue. Now was the perfect time to buy new uniforms, but we were hard up for cash. Obie agreed to loan the group some money from the stash he always kept. He got his sister to throw in a little bit more. She agreed that since we were coming out with something new, we should have new outfits too. We headed back down to our old buddy at Hot Sam's and bought nice brown sport jackets and pants to match. I was feeling pretty good about the future when my mother called. I was hesitant about what she'd say about Baby, I Need Your Loving. I knew she was still upset with me about singing these kinds of unreligious songs. It caught me off guard when she started by asking if I was working somewhere in town. The people she cleaned for had inquired if she knew a group called the Four Tops. She admitted that her son was in it. They were excited about our song on the radio, and they wanted to see us perform. Proudly, I told her about our gig at the Phelps Lounge, and for a minute it felt good that I could not only help them get tickets, but that we were the stars of the show. But the more I thought about it, the more it didn't feel right. My mother was a maid, scrubbing white folks' floors, cleaning their toilets, and changing their sheets. They were paying her next to nothing. Now they were asking her to help them get tickets to hear her son sing. I called her back. "Let me tell you something, Mama," I said. "I don't like the idea of this whole thing, especially you working for these folks." "I got to work somewhere, son," she said. "No, you don't. I'm going to find a way to retire you," I said, with a confidence that just kept growing. "That ain't all. You go find yourself a house, somewhere to live other than the apartment that you stay in." "You don't have to do that," she said, cautiously. "We're going to have some hit records," I told her. "I think I might make some real money, Mama." "Well, I sure hope so," she said, "because believe it or not, me and your sister are just barely making it off what's left of her child support each month. But we've been looking for a house, one that's not too expensive, but big enough for me, the girls, and all the kids. I think we found one." "Go check it out," I said, not knowing where I was going to get the money, but determined to figure it out. At this time in my life, I was very young and very aggressive. I did crazy stuff that I knew I wasn't supposed to do. Somehow, luck was always with me. I had the kind of bravery my daddy must have had jumping into the Detroit River. One time, I even rented a car without a license and kept it for a year. When the rental company finally caught up with me, I told them somebody stole it. I had actually given it to the girl I was going with. But after my +4 experience, I was just as wild, but also a lot wiser. I knew I was no longer going to break the law, and I knew I had to find the money to buy my mother a house, whatever it took. A week before our Phelps Lounge engagement, my mama called to tell me that she'd found the house she wanted. Now I had to deliver. The only thing I could think of was to ask Berry Gordy. At that time, I thought I was a smart cookie, that I could talk and reason with anyone, regardless of who they were. Berry was my boss, only about 2 or 3 years older than me. I felt we had developed a kind of friendship. We had played poker a few times together. I knew that family and loyalty were important to him too. Motown was really like an extended family. I also knew Berry was a betting man. He liked to gamble. It wasn't part of his professional image, but in private he let his guard down. There was one time I was at Mary Wilson's house hanging out, and Berry stopped by to pick her up for a television appearance. While Mary went upstairs to finish getting dressed, Berry and I had a drink. Berry suggested that we finish up a card game we'd started a couple nights before. I still owed him $200. Berry suggested we play blackjack. I got the cards and dealt him a hand for the 200. I won that hand, and we were even. He said we should play another hand for 200, which I also won. Then he doubled it for 400. I won again. The next hand we played for 800. I won. Berry kept doubling the stakes, so we played for 1600. Believe it or not, I blackjacked that hand. You a lucky motherfucker, man, he said, doubling it again. Now we were playing for $3,200. I won. I guessed by then that he was ready to fold. Wait a minute, I ain't through, he said. Let's make up the difference, $10,000 or nothing. If you win, I'll owe you 10, and you ain't going to owe me nothing. I swear on the Bible, I blackjacked that hand. Mr. B, I said gleefully, you know, you owe me $10,000. Well, come to my office tomorrow, he said, and that was it. The next day I showed up and he paid me the 10,000, plus another check for 2,500 to pay the taxes on it. It was like he didn't think nothing of it, not mad or nothing. Knowing that Berry would sometimes take risks and hoping he'd bet on me paying him back, I headed over to Hitsville and went straight up to Berry's office. I knew I'd have to talk to his personal secretary, who sat outside the door. Of course, she asked if I had an appointment. When I said I did not, I tried to impress upon her that this was really important. She told me that I had to make an appointment first. I just couldn't walk in and see him. So I sat down in front of her and started talking, and sure enough, we discovered that we were born on the same day in the same year. She just couldn't believe it. After that, she started warming up to me, and after about an hour, she said Berry must be finishing up his meeting soon. She picked up the phone and buzzed him. I could hear the other side of the conversation as she said one of the four tops wanted to see him. He asked her what it was about. She said that she didn't know, but it sounded important. He told her he'd be done in 10 minutes. He'd see me then. Soon afterwards, Berry came out of his office deep in conversation with Barney Ailes, his head of sales and promotion. I overheard them talking about a group in England doing a cover of a Supremes tune, and Motown needed to figure out a way to prevent them from releasing their record before Motown's. Barney assured Berry not to worry, he'd get to the bottom of things and take care of it. Young Barney Ailes was like a mafia guy. He wasn't actually in the mob, but that's the way he sold records. He was more than close to Berry and crucial to Motown's success. He knew how to deal with distributors and buyers, get them to take Motown product and make sure they sold it. He was a mastermind of selling black records in the segregated South and set the precedent. Part of Berry's genius was that he always surrounded himself with the right people. I was intrigued about how Barney operated. I had an old friend from middle school, Irving Beagle, who worked in Motown's sales and promotion department. I asked if I could hang with him to see how things worked. While I was there, someone called to order 20,000 Supremes records. Barney told Irving how to handle it. Here's what you gotta do. Say we'll send you 40,000, no returns. We'll ship them to you. Don't send nothing back. Bye. That's the way Barney did business. Motown believed in what they were selling. They didn't worry about forcing more records on people because they knew they'd sell. No one would ask to send anything back. Of course, all of the records that were shipped sold. Barney's high-pressure tactics probably had as much to do with Motown's early growth as anything else. So after Barney departed, Berry invited me in his office, complimenting me on how well our record was doing. He had no idea I was about to use that as a bargaining chip to ask for an advance. Look, Berry, I said, I got a small problem, but it shouldn't be that big to you. I need you to loan me some money. He cut me off. Man, I don't do this. I kept going. Look, my mama's scrubbing these white people's floors and she needs a house. I remember you guaranteeing us hits. I know we're going to have another hit after this one. So I'm just asking, would you please loan me $10,000? He said, Duke, I don't usually loan artists that kind of money. Well, just advance me the money, man, I said. Then I told him about the lady my mama worked for who wanted to come hear the Four Tops sing. That's a bunch of shit to me. I need to buy her a house so she can stop scrubbing these folks' floors. You gotta help me get my mama off her fucking knees. I don't know no other way. He started laughing and said, Duke, let me think about it. Come back tomorrow. I was so relieved on my way out, I thanked the secretary and told her almost the whole story. She reassured me that if Berry told me to come back, it was a good sign. When he says no, that's it. There ain't no coming back. Feeling hopeful, I returned the next day, and not one check awaited me, but two. One for $10,000 and another for $2,500 for the taxes. I almost cried. I told Berry that he had just saved my mama and I was so grateful I would never let him down. I couldn't express it in words. Barry simply said, "Man, go on and do what you gotta do." Check in hand, I went straight to my mama's and told her I had the money. She was as surprised as I was, and since I didn't have a car, we found ourselves a ride and went over to the house on Orange Lawn Street. It really was a nice house. The total cost was $15,000. I gave her $4,500 for a down payment and promised that I'd keep up the monthly payments. "Oh baby, you can do that, son?" she asked. "I don't know, mama, but I'm sure gonna try. If it's up to me, you won't have to work another day in your life." She sat there and cried. I did too. With the rest of the money, I went downtown and bought 4 pairs of alligator shoes, and I put a down payment on a Cadillac. Then I hung out that whole weekend, crying from one bar to the next, getting high and sobbing. I was so happy. I didn't know I could be that happy. A few days after my mama moved in, my whole family went over to the house to celebrate. The first thing mama did was bless the house. By that time, she was a minister, but back when she was the church piano player and then the choir director, she was always encouraging me to sing and always believing in me. That day, she was as happy as I've ever seen her, and so were my sister and her little kids. It was just a joy. I remember thinking, "Lord, you can take me right now with a smile on my face." I had taken care of my mother. I was doing the best I could to help my father too. I was so proud that I had taken the first steps a son should to help his parents. I knew they had given me all that they could. Not monetary stuff, but they instilled wonderful things in me that came out in my dealings with people. The way I tried to talk to people, the way I conducted myself in public, the way people responded to me. I know I learned it all from those two. Probably from my grandmother too. I've always felt so blessed. I don't think I've ever experienced another more blessed moment than that weekend. Barry did more than just sell records. He plucked his young protégés from the streets of Detroit and turned them into stars. It was similar to the Hollywood studio system in the 30s and 40s when talented young actors were made to look like American royalty. Barry came up with a division called Artist Development. In a building across the street from the studio, Maxine Powell ran a successful modeling and finishing school. She gave instruction to the Supremes and others on how to conduct themselves like ladies. Classes were taught in etiquette, speaking correctly, how to dress, eat, and give interviews in public. Miss Powell was so successful that when the Supremes and the Beatles, who were big Motown fans, first met in England, the Beatles were let down. The Supremes were all dressed up and acting ladylike, and the Beatles, who were from working-class Liverpool, thought the Supremes were uptight and overdressed. They expected them to let their hair down and have a raucous good time. But that's not the image that Barry wanted them to project. Their new, classy, upgraded look made them into one of the biggest acts in show business. Motown's artist development also included classes with the famed dancer Charlie Atkins, who had been part of a legendary vaudeville dance act, Atkins and Coles. They appeared at the Apollo, toured with jazz greats like Louis Armstrong, and even appeared on Broadway in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. Charlie was good at coming up with choreography for different musical arrangements, teaching each act a unique routine. He was so integral to Barry's assembly line that as soon as an act had a record coming out, they were sent to artist development. Someone had already written their music, given them great arrangements for the stage, provided amazing costumes. Now the artist needed help perfecting their live performance. Most of these kids had never been on the road before, and in order to be a success, it took more than just recording in the studio. Charlie taught them how to enhance their vocal performances with dance moves, hand gestures, and what it took to have a great stage presence. By the time the Four Tops got to Motown, we had already perfected our stage presentation. We knew how to come up with dance moves for specific arrangements. In fact, Gil Askey, one of the arrangers we brought to Motown for our first album, was so expert at putting together live acts that Barry hired him to be the conductor for the Supremes. From then on, he arranged all of their shows, handling everything for them musically. So even though the Tops were experienced live performers, they still scheduled us once every 3 months to brush up with Charlie. He used to laughingly call us the Renegades. Each session was supposed to cover just one song, but we would take 5 or 6 steps across the boards and be finished with all 5. We listened to Charlie's ideas, but unlike the Temps, we kept our dancing to a cool minimum, always remembering what Billy Eckstine told us when we danced ourselves out of breath and started singing flat. The reaction we were getting from just one hit record was amazing. Right away, Motown wanted us to start working on another song, Ask the Lonely. Soon we discovered that big money didn't automatically come with hit records. It would be 2 years before we cleared a royalty check. In order to make a living, we started gigging again. Part of Motown's package was their management company, the International Talent Management, Inc., ITMI, run by Esther Gordy, Barry's sister. We jokingly called it Shit Me. When they put on the Motown Review, the Motown Management Company would buy each act for 12 days and give us a guaranteed amount of dollars and take out their percentages for management. I don't know how much they made, though I'm sure it was a lot. But the artists were satisfied with the deals made by the company, and in the beginning, nobody was really concerned about a conflict of interest. Later, some of us found other representation. Stevie went with Ewart Abner, Smokey worked with Suzanne DePass, and we eventually went with Ron Strassman. Esther was a tough negotiator, though. She made good deals for everybody. Our deal to appear in the review for 10 days amounted to the tops making about $80,000. I can't remember the exact figures, but if there were 6 other acts, they were given similar deals. After a couple of years, the price to package all of the artists went sky high, since everyone's success kept growing. Ultimately, they couldn't afford to put a review together. Being in the Motown Revue was one of the first gigs we had after joining the company. It was a joy performing on stage, and thinking back to when we had been applauding the review sitting in the Apollo audience. Just a year earlier, we'd pictured how we would tear it up if we had the chance. Our reputation was spreading with the success of our first ballad, Ask the Lonely, which we thought was strong and beautiful, especially Levi's delivery. Esther approached us with a remote offer from the West Coast to appear in a show with Count Basie. It was just for a couple of dates, but the money was pretty good, and she would ask for a deposit so we'd have enough to get out there. It sounded good to us. We were big Count Basie fans, hearkening back to the day when we took over the mic in between his sessions in New York. Esther got everything down in a contract, and we flew to LA, where a young guy met us at the airport, an aspiring concert promoter named Dick Griffey. When we got to LA, Dick Griffey started off by telling us that the date didn't look good. In fact, he didn't even think Count Basie was going to come. He asked if we would accompany him to the venue to check on ticket sales to see if he could salvage it. When we got there, the ticket sales were virtually nil. We felt bad for Dick and tried to let him off the hook because we saw what this ambitious young brother was trying to do, and we appreciated him putting us on the bill with Basie. We told him that he could cancel if he wanted to, and we wouldn't charge him a penalty, even though there were provisions in our contract to protect us. Seeing how disappointed and embarrassed he was, since evidently he hadn't advertised enough, we wound up telling him that he'd get it right one day, and we'd work together down the line. He was so grateful, and because we were booked to stay for a few more days, he had another bright idea. What I can do is show y'all a nice party, he said. I know this cat that owns a club down on Crenshaw. You can go down there and hang out. So instead of performing with Count Basie, we wound up having a few drinks, smoking, and doing a couple of other little things that they did in California at that time, all the time building Dick Griffey back up. The next time it would work out, we reassured him. Eventually, he proved us right. Griffey went on to found Soul Train Records with Don Cornelius and his own label, Solar Sound of Los Angeles Records, which had a major impact on R&B in the 70s and 80s. After that fiasco, we went back home, and soon afterwards, ITMI put together another Motown review for about 20 dates. I was as happy as could be, both professionally and in my personal life too. My wife and I had been separated for a while. Before we hit the big time, we weren't making enough to support a family. The other wives kept dancing and helping out. One day, Inez had told me she was going to get a job at the post office. She also said that she wanted a divorce. I didn't know it had gotten that bad. I couldn't believe it. I tried to reason with her, but she held firm. She told me that she had a guy that she wanted to marry. After that, Mary Wilson and I started growing closer. We had a lot in common. Her hardworking mother was a domestic like mine who wanted her daughter to go to college, but like me, Mary wanted to sing. She was as passionate about her career as I was, and as close to Diana and Florence as I was to Levi, Obie, and Lawrence. They were like sisters. Mary was one of the sweetest, nicest young ladies I had ever met. I nicknamed her Sweet Pea because she always had a smile on her face. She would do as much as she could to help everybody. Not to mention that she was as cute as pie. Our careers started blooming at the same time. While the Four Tops were climbing the charts, the Supremes had 4 #1 back-to-back hits, including Stop in the Name of Love. With Motown's bounty, Mary bought a wonderful house on Buena Vista Street in Russell Woods, a beautifully landscaped area in Detroit with elegant 2- and 3-story brick houses. Diana and Florence lived down the street in houses that were picked out and purchased by Motown too, with everything arranged for them. Each house was distinctly different and reflected their individual personalities and lifestyle. Mary's house was always filled with people and was warm and comfortable. Knowing that I was on the road to a divorce, she asked me to move in with her, and we decided to get engaged. We started decorating it together, buying furniture and having some custom pieces built. We put in a bar and pool table. On weekends, we'd invite the whole Motown crowd over. Mary would cook a bunch of food, and I tended bar for Smokey, Marvin, Martha and the Vandellas, the Marvelettes, everybody. It was like a house of blue lights. That's what we called it. We partied and partied. I guess I was having too much fun, because one night, when Mary had cooked some delicious food for the Tops and Smokey Robinson, we heard a knock on the door. I answered it, and there stood my 8-year-old daughter, Kai, who I loved dearly. Kai, what are you doing here? I asked, stunned. My mama dropped me off and told me to ask for you, she said, as I looked outside seeing her mother drive away. Kai came in and Levi started talking to her as I got myself together. Why don't you go in there and help Mary in the kitchen? I finally said. Okay, she agreed, looking around as she headed back. You all sure are having fun here. Kai stayed with us for a couple of days, and during that time I started thinking about my children. I had a little baby boy by then too, Nazim, born in 1966. I reflected that when Inez and I had decided to get a divorce, I wasn't making enough money for her, and now things were looking up. I had just had 2 hit records. I guess she heard from the other wives that I was getting my life together. Spending time with my daughter, I realized that my whole family needed me, so I went to Mary, the sweetest person I had ever met, to let her know what I decided. Mary, as much as I love you, I'm not going to be able to marry you, I said, broken-hearted. If my wife will take me in, I have to go home. I've got 2 kids and I just started making some money. Ah, Duke, don't do this to me, she said, holding back a flood of tears. I love you, and I always will, I reassured her. This is for me and my family. I need to take care of them. If it's money you want, I've got $50,000 you can have, she said with her selfless heart of gold. Mary, it's not about money, believe me, I told her, reminding her how much family meant to me. I realized that I'd lost sight of that, especially when music was involved. As my career grew, my family had continued to expand. The Tops were like brothers to me, and the other Motown artists were like family too. But my wife and children were the most important people in my life. They were my responsibility, and I had no other choice but to go home. Maybe you're right, she finally agreed. We're both in love with our careers. It probably wouldn't last so long. That's where I thought she was wrong. In my heart, I thought it would probably last forever, but I couldn't say that. I left and it broke Mary's heart, but she took it like a champ and we've always remained close. I stood by her through a bad marriage and subsequent divorce and the death of her son Pedro. Until her untimely death, we remained good friends, and she always referred to me as the love of her life. Inez and I got back together and tried to recapture the magic of old times. I did my best to make the hard times up to her. I gave her all my money, paid the bills, and made sure I took care of the kids properly. By then, we'd been blessed with one more child, Abdul, born in 1970. I drove the boys back and forth to school each day and bought Kai a little pedal car that she pedaled to a Catholic school in the neighborhood. My sons loved the new scooters I bought them and us spending time together as a family. I did everything I could to make sure they knew Daddy was back and promised that I would never leave them. If something changed, it wouldn't be because of me. By then, the group was selling records and I'd earned some nice royalties. I bought my wife a nice little ranch-style house on 7 Mile and Pennington, but for some reason she didn't really care about it. I tried to make her happy, but I guess it was hard with me still traveling and not being a full-time husband or dad. Around that time, I invested in a wine bar in Detroit with basketball star Joe Straughter, who played for the Detroit Pistons. I had to spend time at my new venture to help run it. There were times when I came back to town after being on the road. I'd have to get a room in a hotel near the bar. I'd send my road manager to my house to give Inez a check or to ask her to look in my drawer for some cash. She always would. There were no complaints. I thought things were good with us, but at Christmas time she disappeared. The kids and I spent the holidays without her. She didn't return until well into the new year, and when she did, she told me that she wanted a divorce. That's when I moved out for good. I explained to my kids it wasn't their fault, and that it wasn't my choice this time. It had been quite a roller coaster ride for Inez and me. By then, I had experienced some real highs in my show business career, but the price was losing my wife and kids, and I was emotionally at my lowest point. I was confused about love and relationships, questioned my past actions and decisions. I didn't think I was ready to get involved with anyone for a very long time. I guess my better angels must have taken over for me, because on the horizon was a lady who would save my life, teach me how to be a better husband and father, and show me what true love was all about. Life doesn't hand you such gifts until you're ready, and I still had a lot of growing to do first.